For today's video, we're going to be talking about domain and range when we're talking about graphing or tables or even slope as well. So let's get started. So it says we are going to complete the table shown below. The table shows the number of adults and children tickets sold for a school concert. So if you look at the X, the input, it's number of adult tickets, and the output would be the number of children's tickets that are sold. So it says the variable x and y are related by a linear equation, which is right here, 4x plus 2y equals 16. We need to write the equation in function form, so this means y equals mx plus b form. So let's solve that together. So remember, we always want to get y by itself when we're dealing with the slope-intercept form. So what I need to do is get 2y by itself. How I'm going to do that is subtract 4x from both sides. Remember, we can't combine this 4x and this 16 together because the 16 doesn't have an x. It's just by itself. So 4x minus 4x cancels out, and we're left with 2y equals 16 minus a 4x. Now the question is y by itself? Nope, not at all. We need to get it by itself by dividing everything by 2. The reason why is because the opposite of multiplication is division. So now my equation is y equals 16 divided by 2 is 8, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 4 divided by 2 is 2x. So I can leave it like this, or if I want to flip them around, you'd have negative 2x plus 8 for y equals mx plus b form. This is still in y equals mx plus b form, it's just flipped around. So let's move on to part B. So part B says the domain of a function is the set of all input values. So all of my domain is going to be my input values, which is x. So if we're going to find the domain of the function represented by the table, what we're going to do is write out all of our domains. So since it's the input values, I can look here and see that 0 is part of the domain, 1 is, 2, 3, and 4. Those are all my domain values. So it says, why is 5x not in the domain of the function? Why do you think it's not in there? Well, if we plugged in 5 into our equation, it would give us a negative answer. So the output would be negative. And since we're dealing with tickets, we don't want to deal with any negative money. And looking at the second one, why can't x be a half in the domain? Well, think about it. I can't sell half of a ticket. So we can't sell half of a ticket is the reason why. Because that wouldn't be fair, and, you know, everybody would hoot and holler about what's going on. All right. So the range of the function is output values. So if I was going to write the range values, what would I write? Well, I would write out all of my range values. You can definitely put them in order by number, or you can just leave them as 8, 6, 4, 2, 0. I'm going to put them in order to keep everything consistent, so that way when I'm looking through these, I can see, hey, I put these in order, and I put my domain in order. So let's go try some graphing problems. So now we're going to write the domain and range from a graph. So functions can be described in many ways, by an equation, input-output table, it can be in words, it can be by graph, it could also be a set of ordered pairs. All of those are functions. So it says use the graph to write the function as a set of ordered pairs. And now remember, for ordered pairs, x is first, y is second. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis. So let's start with the first point up here. It looks like it's going to be 0, 8. Let's going to be my first set of points. Or, sorry, ordered pairs. Then we're going to look at our second one, which is going to be 1, 6. Our third one, which is going to be 2, 4. And remember, we move left to right first, and then up and down. And then we have 3 and 2 as our other ordered pair. And our last ordered pair is actually going to be 4 and 0. Because X, we're moving to the 4, and we don't move anywhere else but up. So now let's look at some practice problems and find the domain and range of all of them. So we're going to do A and C together, and then you are going to do B and D on your own. So let's look at our equation. We need to plug in a -2 into X first. So a negative times a negative would be a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 and 4 would be 10. So at -2, we're going to have a 10y. So then let's try -1. Negative and negative make a positive. 3 plus 4 is what? 7. So we have 7 for our second one. And this is just going to continue on. As you can see, if I plug in 0, it's just going to be 0 plus 4. So our next one is just going to be a 4. Then we're going to plug in a 1. A negative times a positive is a negative, so it'd be -3 plus 4. If I owe you $3 and I give you 4, you best be hoping you're giving me $1 more back. And our last one, y equals -3. So all I'm doing for these is I'm just plugging in what my X values are, because we already told us what they are. So all I'm doing is some multiplication and addition. So -6 plus a 4 would give me a -2. So now it says write the domain and range. So if I was going to write the domain and range of the problems, you can write D for domain, R for range. My domain is always X values, so I have -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. For my Y values, I'm actually going to put them in order, so I have -2, 1, 4, 7, and 10. Okay. You can also leave it as that, or if you want to match them up and just write them as is, that's totally fine too. You can write 10, 7, 4, 1, -2. Now let's figure out the second one over here. So we actually need to find all of the values from the graph. So my first point, remember it's X and then Y. So X values first, I have 1, 9. The next one I have 3, 7. Then 5, 5. And 7, 3. Remember X is always first. Move left to right and then up and down. And then 9 and 1. So I'm going to write out my domain and range values, which is going to be 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And my range values 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. So I want you to try B and D on your own. Then I'm going to show you what the answers are from there. Alright, so we have all of our problems solved here. Take a minute and pause and look over, double check your work. Mine are color assigned. So my domain for the first one would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And my range would be -6, -5.5, -5, -4.5, and a -4. The next one is going to be all the domains for the graph are 2, 3, 4, 6, and 9. All of the ranges are going to be 0, 1, 2, 4, and 7. So let's move on to the next few problems here from our notes. So it says, in your own words, how can you find the domain and range of a function? If you remember, domain is all the possible input values, and range is all the possible output values. If you can definitely remember range out, domain in, you can pass this easily. Alright, so it says, the following are general rules of finding a person's foot length. To find the foot length, y in inches of a woman's foot, divide her shoe size by by x and 3 and add 7, And then for men's feet, to find the length in y inches of a man's foot, divide his shoe size by x by 3 and add 7.3. So remember, y equals mx plus b. So we're actually dividing for women. So I'm going to do the women's shoes over here. It says you get to choose whichever one you want. So I'm going to do both so you can see what your answer is. So for women, it says we're going to divide her shoe size by 3 and add 7. So I know that the add 7 is going to be my B. And it says divide her shoe size by 3. So I know I'm going to divide her shoe size by 3. And all I need to do is put an X here. So this statement says I'm going to take her shoe size, which is X, and divide it by 3 and add 7. Alright, now for the men, it's going to be about the same thing. We're going to have y equals the man's foot, divide his shoe size by 3 as well. So they both have a third that we're going to divide by. But we're going to add 7.3 to his shoe size. Alright, so let's move on to making a table. Alright, so for this one, I'm going to give you, in my table, I'm going to write both and label them for you. So that way if you did choose women or you did choose men, you can at least see if you did your table correctly. So it says make an input-output table for function part A, which we're going to. Use shoe sizes 5.5 to 8. And then you're going to label your domain in each function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start you out here, and then I want you to figure out the rest on your own. So we're going to plug 5.5 in for these. So if you have one or the other, and you can definitely use a calculator for this, but make sure you don't rely on it too much. So 1/3 times 5.5 is going to give me 5.5 divided by 3 plus 7. You can make these the same denominator, so I'm going to make these the same denominator so I can add them together. So now I have 5.5 over 3 plus 7 times 3 is 21 over 3. So 21 plus 5.5 is going to give me 26.5 divided by 3. If I divide that by 3, we're going to get 8.8. So then for the women, I'm going to put 8.8. Alright. Now for the men, do the same thing. Alright, so if you did all of the math, you should have got 9.1 for the men for the first one. So I want you to pause the video, do the rest of them. I'm going to fill them out for you. Alright, so it looks like you guys pretty much finished it. You can look and see that the red is the women and the orange is the men. So double check your answers, see if you got them, and then label the domain and range. And after that, you're going to go to and complete your checkpoint 5 called domain and range. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out. Have a great day.